Hey everyone, this is Thyworm, and today let's talk about a plague that has been festering in last Epoch for over a year now, the poison. It has been very powerful since early access launched, so let's talk about the issues and some potential solutions. Enjoying last Epoch content? Consider subscribing. I am also streaming on twitch.tv/Thyworm every Monday, Thursday and Saturday, 8 PM Central European Time. We're running a very beginner-friendly stream over there and I'll help you out with any questions you might have. Poison has been broken for as long as I can remember in last Epoch, and up to this day the best builds are poison builds by a significant margin, and there's nothing inherently wrong with this because there will always be one build that is the strongest, but it's been very consistent over the last year. Poison is always at the top, and I think some variety here would be nice. Today I want to provide some thoughts on the issues that I think make poison so potent, despite many nerfs over the last year to poison and poison skills. Let's start however with properly introducing poison. It is an ailment that can stack an infinite amount of times, and every stack its damage ticks are increased by 7%. By default it does 20 base damage over 3 seconds. It is a damage over time effect, which means it scales with damage over time multipliers and it scales with poison damage multipliers. And depending on the skill, it may scale with other things as well. Based on your chance to poison percentage, you can apply multiple stacks of poison per hit. If you have, for example, 300% chance to poison on hit, you actually apply 3 stacks of poison per hit. That is how poison works. I think there are 3 reasons why poison is very strong. 1. The scaling effect of poison. Poison is one of the only skills that has an innate scaling of 7% increased poison damage taken. No other damage over time effect has anything like this. It used to be 10%, then it was 8%, now it's 7%, and it's still way too much. Having scaling in a skill like this will eventually spiral out of control, resulting in a poor training dummy having to withstand millions of poison damage per second. In a game where 10k DPS is considered very decent, we have poison rampaging at 3 million DPS. The scaling makes these numbers possible, partially. Number 2. The availability of poison. In classes where poison builds are, let's say, an archetype, so primalists and acolytes, there isn't just a little bit of poison available. It's not just a few skills that have poison nodes. It's not that speccing into poison comes with any drawback whatsoever that would balance the strength of the build, and this is worthy of mentioning. Take another famous action RPG as an example. There are plenty of strong builds in Path of Exile that could be considered OP, but almost always there is a heavy investment required in terms of gear, in terms of passives, or in terms of playstyle. There are not many all-round great OP builds because PoE is a rather balanced game in that sense. If I want to map with a headhunter, I need to invest hundreds of exalts in order to make the build viable, or as they say, really broken. It takes about a month of farming into the league to create a build like that, or a very generous fellow streamer who donates an entire set to me just to let me mess around with a headhunter for a while, but normally gathering the required currency and gear takes a long time. And then the reward is a broken build, which seems fair, or you could at least make an argument that it isn't such a bad thing, as leagues only last 3 months and the investment seems proportionate to the reward. Compare this to last Epoch. My Lich has 16 skills with a skill tree available to her. Out of those 16 skills, 14 either do poison damage or can be specced into giving poison stacks on hit, or shred poison resistances, or make enemies weaker to poison otherwise. It is actually a challenge to pick a skill without poison. The only skills without poison are Marrow Shard and Transplant. And Transplant is ironically one of the most potent poison spells because it can proc 12 Rib Bloods and Blood Splatters, each inflicting stacks of poison. Poison is everywhere. It is literally all over the place, and it can be specced into with impunity, without any drawback, without losing any essential stats, without any form of downside. I haven't even talked about the idols, because those give you more poison, more stacks. They give your minions poison. They allow spells that normally don't have poison to get poison stacks. Another factor that weighs in heavily as well is the fact that poison applies on hit, and that basically everything thing is a hit apart from poison itself, because damage over time doesn't count as a hit. Any spell, projectile, any attack that is not a dot, any minion attack, anything that hits anything is considered a hit and can apply multiple stacks of poison on hit, and this adds up quickly. You gain a massive amount of poison stacks without too much effort. Simply spec into the poison nodes of any of the 14 skills, get as many hits in as possible, and without even much added poison damage or damage over time, you will do massive damage. Reason number 3, the lack of diminishing returns. Quite some skills and abilities have diminishing returns. Scaling is not linear in most cases. You need to invest more and more stats to achieve the same result. It is much easier to go from 0 to 30% dodge chance than to go from 30 to 60% dodge chance. You need to get a lot more dodge rating for the same increase of 30%. Those are called diminishing returns, and they are designed and they exist, so you can't just stack dodge rating infinitely and reach more than 100% chance to dodge, making you invulnerable. Ward works the exact same way. The more ward you stack, the faster it decays. At some point, it's not worth investing into a stat that has diminishing returns, because you're not getting a lot of value out of your investment. You should realize that and stop at 70% dodge, which is kind of the sweet spot in many cases. Spend the rest of the points elsewhere, like in health. Many mechanics in the game work like this, but not poison. As a matter of fact, poison works actually exactly the other way around. The more poison, the more 7% increases you get. The more potent it becomes, the more it spirals out of control, the more massive damage you do to that poor training dummy. And there's nothing being diminished really, apart from that piece of wood in the end of time. As a matter of fact, poison has amplifying returns if such a thing exists. The more you invest, the more damage you do. Let's talk a bit about what this means. These 3 reasons just by itself in isolation wouldn't be much of an issue, I think. If poison would be widely available but didn't scale, it wouldn't be so bad. If poison damage would scale per stack but there would be diminishing returns, it wouldn't be so bad. If poison had no diminishing returns, but it wouldn't scale exponentially, it wouldn't be so bad. But in their enthusiasm for their amazing skill design, which is truly revolutionary, and their fondness of the green gooey stuff in some classes, the devs have created the perfect poisonous storm in which damage over time has its waves of DPS battering against the toughest of foes and all die within seconds. By combining these 3 reasons in a build, poison is completely out of line, utterly broken, and it needs fixing because this is not a desirable situation at launch. Everyone running a poison build, and not even a good one, is going to one-shot any content, including any new stuff the devs come up with for endgame. So, what are some of the solutions I'm suggesting? These solutions tie back into the 3 reasons that poison is strong. I believe that each individual reason isn't problematic just by its own, but the combination is, especially of all 3. So tuning needs to happen in one or more of the 3 areas. The simplest solution would be killing the scaling entirely. I think if you do that, poison will still be stronger than ignite or bleed, simply because it is so prevalent in these classes and you can apply so many stacks. But the massive DPS numbers wouldn't be achievable anymore, as you are limited by poison stacks and duration. It would not be the best approach, however, in my opinion. Introducing an ailment cap or diminishing returns in terms of scaling will help as well. I would personally like this solution the most because builds that use poisons that aren't OP builds would be impacted the least by introducing diminishing returns, as diminishing returns only kick in at higher DPS builds. I think this is the proper way to go, to keep the design philosophy of poison intact and even the scaling per stack if that is part of the design philosophy, but you would get rid of the insane DPS. Your average builds wouldn't suffer much from poison scaling caps because under normal circumstances you might not read the cap anyway. Primarily the very powerful poison builds will be tackled, which should be the purpose of this exercise. It may however not be enough and tweaking in other areas is probably required. I think it would also be a healthy development if poison isn't available on all skills. It does give players a lot of freedom, which is really nice, but in this case I think it's overdone by a little bit. Synergy is nice and all, but this seems a bit much. By limiting players somewhat, you also incentivize creativity, and it provides skill more identity as well. If all skills can do poison damage, then what makes poison or poisonous skills unique and stand out? Why then take a specific poison skill if any other skill can do poison too? I would like some changes on this front, but I'm not sure how likely it is this will happen. Mainly because designing and redesigning skills is a lot more work than tweaking some scaling or poison stack numbers. I think by adjusting these 3 areas though, poison could be fixed and brought down to acceptable levels. And those were my thoughts on poison. I hope you enjoyed the videos, ladies and gents. Thanks for watching and making it to the end. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.